This is Learn from Others, where we interview a cross-section of successful individuals so you can learn from their experiences, achievements, and even their mistakes. We ask 4 questions that will educate and inspire. Greg Stanley will be your guide as we join our guest on a journey from adolescent daydreaming to success in today's world. Join us on this adventure as we learn from others together.
Well, welcome to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest, Jenna Moralez. Jenna, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, thank you for taking us on your career journey. Before we find out what you're doing today, let's start at the very beginning. And can you tell me, what did you want to be when you grew up?
When I grew up, I came from a single mom, so I always saw what hard work had looked like. And my mom actually told me this story over Thanksgiving, and it kind of touched her heart because we were going around saying what we were thankful for. She was just like, you told me when you were little that you wanted to be a business professional. And I was just like, really? It kind of just, it kind of took me back because I literally always wanted to just work in the professional world and just be a powerful businesswoman. I had thought growing up that meant a lot of math equations, so I tried to be the best that I could possibly be at math, but I learned that that's not all that it is. But I would say a business professional.
That's a very unusual thing to aspire to be at such a young age. I mean, it's awesome, but it's very unusual. So that's really cool. What was your first job like as a little kid? So it could be babysitting, it could be, selling candy, Girl Scout cookies.
Growing up, my first job was babysitting my cousins. I was a good 10 years older than them, so that happened quite frequently. 4 little ones running around, and I was
4.
had the
That's a lot.
privilege of doing that. Yeah.
That's a handful. So what was your first real job? When were you felt like you had some job responsibilities and really wanted to perform?
My first real job, I was a lifeguard.
Oh, a lifeguard. Okay, like at a local community pool?
Yes, for the YMCA.
Now, how old were when you started that? That's a lot of responsibility with.
I was 16. I only did it for a summer. The only reason I wanted to do it was so that I could get a good tan. But then I needed to make more money than that, so I worked in the restaurant industry.
Now, was that as like a waitress, as a bus girl, as a hostess?
I was a waitress first. I did it seasonally for a really popular local chain here in Texas, and then moved my way up to bartender, head wait, just different restaurants. I got better positions.
Okay, that's great. Well, I know you mentioned it briefly about having to do a lot of math or doing a lot of math because you thought that was part of what you wanted to be when you grew up. Well, what was your actual favorite hobby or subject in school? Was it indeed math, or did you kind of grind through that and you actually enjoyed something else more?
Math was my favorite.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, that worked out well.
It did work out well, yeah. Whenever I found out that I had that I was very good at math, it was easy, so it just became my favorite subject.
Okay. So you started out babysitting, you worked as a lifeguard, then you went into waitressing and moving your way up in different roles in the restaurant industry. So what do you do today? I
am a national account manager for a food distribution company.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your responsibilities, and if you would, tell us the roles you got, education, and maybe some earlier jobs that led you to this current role.
I am the lead for roughly about 30 account executives at different locations across the United States, kind of the liaison between our actual customer and those 30 representatives that work for my company. I work on corporate pricing between my company and the customer, selling new items, giving new ideas to the customer and how we as a company can benefit the customer. And then that information trickles down to the account executives. Every day is not the same. I don't necessarily have daily tasks. It just depends on what projects we're working on with the customer and how I can relay the information to the account executives. Learning the food service industry and always working my main jobs, working in food service for restaurants, bars, I gained a knowledge of food. And so when this opportunity had come up to work for this company, it was just like, okay, I've been on the food service industry side of this. Now I want to know what it's like to work at the distribution level.
Okay, so that kind of makes a lot of sense. Could you give a brief description of food service in general? Because a lot of our listeners may not know that. The way I understand it from my history is basically any type of food that is prepared and ready to eat at the moment you buy it. Is that correct?
Yes, my company does exactly what you just said. We give food to the restaurants, to airlines, to stadiums, to convenience stores, to grocery stores. Any ingredients or, like you said, ready to eat, we sell it. We don't produce anything, but we are a big warehouse to where a customer can have a one-stop shop that comes through us. If we don't have it, we can get it. A lot of the times we can get you better pricing than you going on your own. It's a big warehouse that has a lot of food and disposables as well, to-go boxes, forks, knives, napkins. Basically everything that you need in your restaurant or food location, even when it comes to POS systems, ordering systems, we can help build a menu for you. If you have an idea that revolves around food, we can help you make it happen.
That's really cool. So from a consumer perspective, this might be the lunch you get in a prepackaged container on an airline. You're flying somewhere. It could be in an airport. You go up to one of those little kiosks and they have the sub sandwiches wrapped. It could be in a restaurant or a convenience store. It might be the hot dogs that are fresh, ready to eat, the corn dogs on the roller grill. Is that correct as well?
Absolutely, yes.
Well, that sounds like you had a very good career path. You worked at kind of the place where it actually is sold, and then you end up working for the company that gets it there. Is that correct?
Yes, just working at the restaurants and the bars and just seeing my company's logo all around, and then just thinking like, wow, I know a lot about food. I love to consume food. It would be a great opportunity to try to apply for this company.
Now, what's one of the most challenging aspects of your job?
Putting out fires and doing it fast. Fires meaning problems, people coming to you from your customer side and your side, and you having to have the answer, figure it out, or find the solution, and do it pretty rapidly. Or if you can't, just talking people off the cliff. That's a daily task, and it's a very fast-paced environment, but that's what makes the days go by and makes you a better person professionally.
It sounds like you have a job similar to my day job where you're dealing with multiple customers across a large base, a lot of account managers, and like you said, you don't have necessarily an average day. You're not punching a time clock and you're working at the same desk and the same thing. You're basically, where can I be most impactful? What fires need to be put out? What resource needs to get to the right person at the right time to make something happen, correct?
Exactly.
Well, what's one of the more rewarding aspects of your job?
I love helping people. Being able to help, like I said earlier, like talk people off the edge, like just helping them and knowing that when they come to me, like they come to me because, it's just like this is a solutions person. I love creating new relationships. I think that's the main part of being in the business world is the relationships. Because a lot of the times you tell people things that they don't want to hear, but if they respect you, it's a lot easier for them to listen to the negativity you're about to tell them because they respect you. So I would just say relationships and helping people. I love doing it. I love hearing thank you, like, oh my gosh, like it's very rewarding to know that you made somebody's day a little bit easier.
And you made a great point there. Having that relationship, you might be bringing someone bad news, but knowing the relationship, knowing that they trust you and you have their best interests at heart, they're not going to shoot the messenger, so to speak. If you have that relationship built up right, they'll look to partner with you and, how can we overcome this? So that's
Exactly.
Great that's one of your favorite things. Well, cool. Well, before we move on to our next question, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors. Do you enjoy your job and find it fulfilling? Or do you spend more time wondering what if instead of what's next? If so, contact Career Spa. Career Spa has extensive programs and curriculum and understands the challenges faced by individuals in transition. They can teach these success practices to be mastered for an effective job search. Answer that what if question by contacting Career Spa and asking their experts, what's next? Contact Career Spa at careerspa.net. Talent acquisition is key to building a successful organization. Talent Connections is a professional services firm that specializes in recruiting, including executive search, contract recruiting, talent acquisition consulting, and recruitment process outsourcing. Whether you are an individual or a Fortune 100 company, Talent Connections can connect you with success. Contact them at talentconnections.net. Well, welcome back. We just learned what you wanted to be when you grew up. which was a businesswoman, and what you actually do today, which is a businesswoman, which is really cool. So if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently? And that could be from an education standpoint. It could be from a job perspective. It could be something last week. What would you do differently, if anything?
I was in a couple of organizations in college, and I just would have given myself more, because that's like one, besides high school, that's one key spot where you can grow and you can flourish, and you can use those relationships that you gain in college to help you in any professional, whatever world you choose. I definitely would have given myself more, studied more, listened more, just soaked up as much as I possibly could. And even once I started my career, I was stagnant for 3 years in my first position, and it was a great position. It was an amazing entry-level position. It wasn't entry-level. It was an amazing position to have when I first started my actual career, and I wish I wouldn't have been stagnant. I wish I would have bounced around, kind of like I'm doing now. I was in my first role for 3 years, then I moved on to another role for not even a year and a half, and now I'm in another role, and I've been here for 7 months, and now I'm already in like, okay, what can I do next?
Right.
Those are the two things I would have definitely have changed. I'm trying to learn from those so that I don't become stagnant any longer, and I can just keep growing and growing, building my resume.
Right. Yeah, there is a lot in that you're always learning something new and applying it, and then taking that experience and adding on to it with a new experience. So I could totally see, looking back, wishing you had done more of that in the past. But it sounds like you're doing that today, which is great.
Yes. In college, I had the opportunity, my college boyfriend, his dad owned a restaurant in Galveston, Texas. And I got to go to a food cutting, which would just be like go to the test kitchen at my current company, and there was a representative there. It was his, they're called marketing associates. These are all distribution terms, but the street side of business, like restaurants and stuff that consumers eat at. And I got to go to a cutting or a tasting. I just thought that was so cool that there was this representative that was helping my boyfriend's restaurant at the time with the menu and how to be profitable. And one thing that stuck out to me was this person was like, you don't have any chocolate on your dessert menu. Like, you have to have chocolate. Like, this is going to get you dessert sales. And it was just really incredible that's when I was just like, I want to work for this company. Like, I love food. Like, this is something that I think I could be great at and talk about every day.
And that's interesting you say that, because that's kind of like a snapshot of an internship. So a lot of times people say, internships are great because you can see how the company operates, is if it's something that you would be interested in or not. And you were able to get that brief snapshot. It wasn't an internship, but it was an experience you had where you could say, this is something I could get behind. This is something I would like to spend my career doing. So that's great that you're able to experience that and walk away with that knowledge.
Yes, and at a good time. I mean, it was my college years. It was like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah, that is the hardest question to answer.
Yeah.
So let's make the assumption that someone wants to do what you do. Is there a typical career path, or is there some advice you would give them?
I would say if it was going to be in the food service industry, I would say working in the food service industry before you move to the distribution side would be a huge plus. So if you don't have any prior sales experience, having the food knowledge experience is very helpful. Restaurants, bars, it really doesn't matter. Even stadiums, like if you were a cashier at a stadium, it's still something, you still deal with food. And it's just knowing things of that nature. Definitely if you're in a leading role where you're leading people, no matter if they report to you or not, that doesn't matter. But just having relationships and realizing how important they are.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, I'm just kind of wondering, it had to have been a pretty big jump to go from, like, say, the restaurant industry to the distributor that's supplying that. Did you find that to be a pretty big jump?
It was very big, because the only thing that I had done was steaks and Mexican, or the only restaurants I had worked at were steak restaurants and Mexican food. And the only thing I really knew was that. And so my last customer that I had dealt with at my company, very big nationwide, but they weren't in really the retail segment. And now I'm in the retail segment, and it's a whole new world. And it's very different, even like pack sizes and the items that the retail, like the convenience stores and the grocery stores use. it is just completely different. It is a big jump, but just having any basic knowledge whatsoever goes a long way.
So is there anything you did in particular that made you stand out from rest of the applicants for that position to make such a big jump?
My follow-up, this retail team I love it. It's very different and it's new to my company within the past couple of years. But whenever I had interviewed, the 3 people that I interviewed with loved my follow-up, and I had worked on a couple projects for one of our huge customers, and I had submitted my projects to my interviewers and was just, these are what I've been working on. This is how it benefited our current customer. And I had also had a couple people that I had worked with that I had no idea were submitting references for me. I did not know that at all until I stepped into this role that I'm currently in and had met these people face to face that I had only worked with over the phone. They're like, we're so excited for you. I actually sit next to one of the ladies. She's like, I'm so excited for you. Like, I told them if they did not choose you, they were completely missing out. And I was just like, whoa. And that was just from a relationship. Like, I had done something for this person and had helped her, and we had worked on a project together at one point in time, and she was just like, I was rooting for you the entire time.
Well, that's great, and that speaks exactly to what you said earlier and just now, the relationship aspect of it. You built that relationship up. They were speaking on your behalf without you even knowing it. And
right.
The other piece of that is the big projects you worked on, because you probably took that to your company when you're interviewing, saying, hey, look, here's what I've already done. I've already delivered on something big. Now, imagine what I could do for you. Someone who's listening to this might want to listen to and apply, if they're trying to make a big jump like you were able to make.
Right, definitely.
That's awesome. Well, as with most journeys, success largely depends on reliable transportation. And I know we talked about it briefly on our pre-call, but I'm a huge car enthusiast. I have no idea if you are or not. And if you're not, that's fine. But what was your first car?
Oh, my first car was a Mercury Cougar.
Oh, okay. Now, those had some really great years and some not so great years. What year was it?
Mine was the not so great year.
Oh, it was? Okay. What year was it, out of curiosity, then?
It was literally the year before they had gotten actually really decent. It was the bigger model. It was horrible. And I remember when I got it, I cried.
Oh, no, that's not a good first car story. You cried. Well, that tells me you were expecting something else. What were you expecting?
Well, when I had found out it was a Mercury Cougar, I actually liked the car. The smaller 2 doors. I loved it. And when I saw that it was the older model, I was just like, oh my gosh.
Oh, wow. Was it for safety reasons, like the big 4-door?
No, not even. I think it was just maybe monetary reasons.
Right.
I didn't have it for very long, not long at all. When I went to college, my second time, I got a 2-door Honda Civic. And it was a stick shift. And when I got that car, I cried as well because I did not know how to drive one. And I learned in one day.
That's awesome.
And now I love driving stick shifts. My boyfriend actually has one. And he was pretty impressed whenever I got into it that I knew how to drive it years ago. And I was just like, yeah, it's easy.
Yeah, I love stick shift. Yeah, I've always had one. A very interesting story. So your first 2 cars, you broke out in tears. So that is a first for sure. Wow. Well, do you have a dream car by any chance?
After I had always wanted this is just so basic. I had always wanted a Lexus, and I got one last year, but it's just very standard Lexus.
I don't know if there's such a thing, right? All Lexuses are awesome.
And then I had actually gotten something in the mail over the weekend that had the new, I think it was 2019 Lexus LC, and that looks really nice.
Whoa. Yeah, that's a super nice car. Yeah.
So that could be dream. Definitely dream.
Well, one great perk to some jobs is a company car. So if I had all the money in the world, I'd like to buy you a cool company car. Now, this is based on your job. It's not a Lexus. So the way I defined your job was it was all about the food. Okay?
Okay.
And so try to project that out across the history of the car, and you come up with some interesting automobiles, but none of them were really cool. So let me go over the quick list. The one everybody knows about is the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. That's not very cool.
Right.
I used to work for Kraft Foods, so I'm very familiar with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. In 1918, there was actually a Lifesavers car that was shaped like a roll of Lifesavers, and the driver could not actually even see through the front. They had to stick their head out the side to see where they were going, so that wasn't very safe. Planters Peanuts, they've always had one. That's not really cool. The one that I thought was really funny, they had a 1980 Stroh's beer can car, and it had a 15-gallon keg on the back, but then they realized that's probably not a good message with drinking and driving and all that. So it's quite a stretch, but I did get you a cool car. I went with the 1977 Pontiac Trans Am that was in Smoking the Bandit. Are you familiar with that car?
No.
You're not? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, really cool car. It's connected to food somewhat. This is a stretch, but have you ever seen the movie?
Never from start to finish.
Okay, so the whole idea of Smoking the Bandit is Smokey is the big truck that's trying to get a truck full of beer across the Arkansas border or something like that. And so Smokey's the police officers. The bandit, Burt Reynolds, and his cool car, they're distracting the police. So they're jumping over bridges. They're going all sorts of fun stuff all over the place. So this car was iconic. It just sold for like $1.2 million, one of the original ones. And it's a really cool, fast car for the late 70s and has a little bit to do with the food service industry if you really stretch it out. So that's the best I could come up with, but it's still a cool car that if I had all the money in the world, I would get for you. And I'll post a picture of this when I post this podcast so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yes, I have to. I want to see it.
Well, thank you so much, Jenna, for taking us on your career journey today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. Where will our next adventure take us? Subscribe to find out. If you know of someone who has a cool career story or occupation, contact Greg through Instagram at Greg Stanley LFO. That's GregStanley LFO. And we will see you soon as we learn from others together.